This webinar here for you all today. Just want to talk about a few general items for this webinar. So everyone who's participating today, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. I know everyone's schedules are really busy. So just a few kind of housekeeping items that I want to discuss here this morning is all participants' mics and cameras are going to be turned off for the duration of this webinar. This will be recorded, which is the reason why. And then same as the general chat. The general chat will not be available for this webinar here today. However, if you do have questions, you will be able to ask questions during the presentation if you do have any, and they're going to be answered at the end of the presentation. Feel free to use the Q&A icon to ask your question. I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. So as I mentioned, the session is being recorded and it will be available in the coming days to all participants at the end of it. This will also be posted on the ACSA YouTube channel for those that may not have had the time today to participate in the webinar. So just a plug for the YouTube channel. I do recommend checking it out as there's a variety of safety related videos at your disposal that could help you in various safety meetings, ACSA products and services, that sort of thing. So who I have here today doing the presentation is Austin Dowling. He is a COR Audit Review Analyst for the Alberta Construction Safety Association. He is a graduate from the NAIT Occupational Health and Safety Diploma Program back in 2017. Austin is responsible for enhancing the safety and auditing standards within Alberta's construction industry. His role involves in-depth quality assurance reviews, stakeholder engagement, and ensuring the effectiveness of safety programs and audits. His expertise in occupational health and safety, combined with his strong communication and mentoring skills, make him an invaluable asset to the ACSA and its members. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Austin and take it away.
Well, thanks for the great intro there, Matt. As Matt has said, my name's Austin Dowling, and thank you everyone for attending the webinar today. I've been in the COR department since 2017 and have been involved in training on and reviewing COR audits, CCORs, TLCs, and action plans, which is what the presentation is on today. And so you're probably wondering what action plans are. And so the ACSA began offering COR action plans back in 2016, and they offer an alternative way for members to maintain their COR certificate. And it's designed to implement any sort of suggestions or ways of improvement from previous audits and any sort of health and safety initiatives that are outside of the normal audit realm. Some benefits of the COR action plan are that it allows members to decide for themselves what they'd like to focus on. With the action plan, you're no longer bound to the 10 elements which are found within the audit instrument, and you can decide on what you'd like to focus on. It's also a great opportunity for members who've, say, had COR for 10, 15, 20 years to focus on ways to continually improve their health and safety program in other areas related to health and safety. And with the COR action plans, so they are, again, it's an alternative to the COR maintenance audit. And so members who perform group audits can still participate in the action plan process. The COR action plan also counts towards auditor maintenance, and so that'll allow to still maintain your certificate as an auditor. And team action plans can also be performed to maintain more than one auditor on the action plan. And so some eligibility requirements regarding this, and some questions to consider if to see if you're eligible for the action plan process. Are you a current core holder in good standing? Do you meet the core training requirements? And those core training requirements are the principles of health and safety management, leadership for safety excellence, Alberta OH&S legislation awareness, and the auditor training program courses. Have you completed one full course cycle? And so on the next slide, there's a graphic that will be showing you on the course cycle and what exactly that means. And another question to consider is, can you also develop at least one health and safety objective based off your last certification audit? And so here's the graphic regarding the what I was talking about, this cycle. And so for the eligibility requirements, you have to go through a full course cycle. So that would be year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And then in the 5th year, that's when you'd be eligible for the action plan process. So as you can see there on year 5 is when you would be eligible to start. And so with the action plan process, there are 2 steps to the whole process. So the very first step is the action plan proposal, and the second step is the action plan submission. We'll go in further in depth later on in the presentation describing the differences between the two. And with the action plan proposal, that's what's submitted in the spring and what you indicate you intend to focus on. And the due date for the action plan proposal submission is May 31st of 2024. And the action plan submission is what is submitted in the fall, which provides the proof of what documentation you've completed as a result of the action plan process. And the submission for that is November 15th, 2024, the due date. And so the action plan consists of 3 items. The first item is the objective, and so that's what you intend on doing, and it's based off the health and safety initiatives. Milestones, so that's the step-by-step breakdown of what you plan on doing to meet that objective. And then the deliverables are the actual the proof of implementation of your objectives. And so that's what the supporting documentation that you would provide to show evidence of what you've completed as a result of the action plan. So within an action plan, the minimum standard is that you're required to have at least 3 to 7 objectives that can be started and completed within the calendar year. At least one objective must come from your last certification audit. And a great way to find one of those objectives would be looking at your executive summary from your previous certification audit to find any sort of deficiencies that were found, so that you're not having to sift through your entire audit to try and find something that didn't get a full grade. And so that's just a recommendation to go to the executive summary. And all the rest of the objectives can be any sort of health and safety initiatives that you'd like to focus on. And so some of those examples can include creating new safe work practices, creating a brand new training system, updating your health and safety board with any sort of relevant information, are just a couple of examples that could be used as well. And so the image that you see on the screen right now is our action plan form that you'd be utilizing. And so at the very top there, which is highlighted, is the objective. And so the objectives are required to follow the SMART criteria, so being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. The next portion here is the milestone area. And so with that, the minimum requirements of that is that there are at least 2 to 5 milestones for each objective, that they're written clearly, actionable, they're assigned to a specific person or group. The responsibilities, they can be assigned to anyone in the company. However, we do ensure that the auditor who is wishing to maintain their status does have some assigned responsibility throughout the action plan, as well as there are target dates that have to be assigned to that. And those target dates are more so for your internal processes to ensure that you're on track with the completion of the various milestones that you're planning on doing. And so we do not measure if the dates were not met. And so the scores aren't reflected if those dates aren't met. So that's just something as well to be aware of. It's just for your internal processes. So the next visual here is the deliverables area. And so with that, this is where you would list the documentation or the records that you plan on submitting to verify the milestone was completed. Each milestone is given a weighting, and the weighting can be assigned based off the importance of each milestone. In total, the weighting of all the objectives have to equal 100. And so the box at the very top left there, it shows that must be 100. And so in the end, all the objectives weightings has to equal 100 in order for it to move on. That's basically just the 100 is for the total percentage. So there's 100%. And so that's where that comes into effect. And so here we have a completed version of an action plan. And so here the objective is to create a new emergency response plan for the potential emergency scenario of shelter in place, which was missing in the last audit. So with that, the objective's clear, specific, measurable, and relevant to the company operations, and can be reasonably completed within the action plan timelines. The other thing as well for this objective is that you can also see it says check if based on checkbox if based on previous audit recommendations. So that's another thing to be aware of, is that if it is from the previous certification audit, that you click that checkbox so the reviewer knows that to check for that particular one in the previous evaluation for validation. And so here again, there's the completed areas for the milestones. So it shows they're broken down into specific steps for completion. All the milestones are assigned to a specific group or individual. And then there are target dates that have been assigned to each of those milestones, and that can be completed within the submission requirements. And so the next one here is a completed version of the deliverables. And so it shows exactly the documentation that you plan on submitting to ensure that will be provided. And it's being specific in your deliverables, assist the member in ensuring that all required information will be provided to the ACSA when the submission is happening, and then the weighting has been assigned to each milestone depending on how difficult the task is. one thing to consider is, and it's a common amendment that we do send out, is that in this case, the emergency response plan had already been in existence and just was adding upon it to include the shelter in place. And so we'd like to see the original emergency response plan as well as the updated version to show the changes that have been made from what it originally was to what it is currently. So that's just something to be aware of as well. And as well at the very top, it shows the 100 marks as I had talked about earlier. So that's verifying that that has been completed as well. And so if you've completed your proposal, you're probably wondering what's next. And so once the proposal has been completed, you'll submit it to the ACSA for review and approval. The core team will review the proposal and ensure that all objectives, milestones, and deliverables meet the requirements. Just so you're aware, amendments may be requested if any sort of additional information is required, or if we need a further understanding on what you're trying to achieve. So don't feel bad if that does happen to you. It's just we're trying to figure out kind of what you're intending on doing at times to just get a full picture of what you plan on doing. And once the approval has been received, then the member can begin implementing the action plan. And so this is the second stage was the action plan submission. And so in this stage, you are required as the members to complete self-scoring and make any sort of applicable notes regarding the completion of the action plan. Once all milestones have been completed, you'll submit all the deliverables for final QA review before that fall submission deadline. And also ensuring that when you're submitting that you provide all the supporting documentation that you identified in the deliverables within that final submission. And so here we're highlighting the submission requirements. So the very first box shows where you'll provide that self-score, whether you felt that the milestone was either met or not. And you'll also have an area there for self-scoring notes that can be used to indicate what you've completed, maybe something that wasn't fully done, and providing an explanation. So it gives the reviewer an idea of what was either done or not. And so with the final approval, once your final submission has been received, it will be reviewed by the core team to determine the final score. The same reviewer who reviewed the original action plan proposal will also usually review the final action plan submission for consistency and being familiar with since already being familiar with the company. And the core team will also assign a score to each milestone based off the deliverables that were provided in the documentation that was submitted. Again, as I had pointed out earlier for the proposal, same sort of deal with the submission. We may request amendments as well, say potentially maybe a document was missed in the final submission and we couldn't find it. We would reach out to try and see if maybe it just got lost in translation and you'd be able to provide that. So that's usually what we do, and if any sort of amendments are required. So we're there to help you out and work with you at that point. And then the minimum passing grade, which is the same as for a core maintenance audit, is that 60% overall. And so if you're unable to finish the action plan and able to successfully complete it, a core maintenance audit will be required to maintain the your core certification. If you have any sort of concerns about being able to finish the action plan, please contact the ACSA as soon as possible, as well as if the member that completes the proposal, they've completed the proposal stage, sorry, but are unable to fully implement the core action plan, please contact us right away and we'll help you at that time. And if you also have the contact information of the reviewer that you were dealing with, since they're already familiar with you as a member, then reach out to them, and then we'll be able to deal with that at that time. And so you might be wondering if the action plan affects your certification date. And so it doesn't. A completed action plan replaces that core maintenance audit for the year. So your next audit will be due by the original certification date. And you might be wondering if you can do an action plan in the next maintenance year, and you can. The requirements for that are, as long as you've received an 80% overall in your previous submission, you'll be eligible for completing a second action plan for the next year. And that concludes the presentation that we have here for you today. And so if you have any questions regarding action plans or anything health and safety related, please feel free to email us at core@youracsa.ca or call us 780-453-3311. And as well, you can visit our website for www.youracsa.ca, core action plans, and that also has all the information regarding action plans. The various forms you have to fill out are all available there. And yeah, so I guess I'll return the mic back to Matt and answer any sort of questions that may have been popped up as a result of the presentation.
All right, thanks, Austin. It was a lot of information to unpack. So I just wanted to mention just one additional reminder here that you mentioned earlier. So there's two important dates to remember if you're considering a core action plan as a maintenance option. So applications for 2024 must be submitted to the ACSA by Friday, May 31st. And then the final submissions, once they're conditionally approved, must be submitted by no later than Friday, November 15th of 2024. This is also posted on the on our website, as well as I believe on the action plan proposal form. So there's a few different areas to keep an eye out when you're looking for those dates. So we'll look at the Q&A right now. So there's two questions that popped up here. And the first one is, when can a company start to implement the milestones and create the deliverables for the action plan?
So with that, basically, as soon as that proposal stage has been approved, you can start on that immediately and start on that. So basically it's just, yeah, waiting for that proposal to be fully approved, and then you can start as soon as that gets approved to complete the necessary documentation.
Okay. Next question is, what is the difference between conditional approval and final approval of the action plan?
So the conditional approval is the proposal stage. And so once you have the proposal approved, at that point it's called conditional approval. And so then you'll have to do the documentation for the deliverables, excuse me, as part of that final submission. And then once you complete the final submission, that's when it'll be that final approval would be at that stage.
Okay. Next question is, does this apply to all core certification, example AASP? So I might be able to tackle this one, Austin. So
Okay.
I think, and this may not answer the question, so you may have to repost a clarifying question if possible. So there are a number of certifying partners that offer action plans as an option. ACSA is obviously one of them. We've been doing it since 2016. So if you want to apply for an action plan with the ACSA, you would have to have done, or at least been, or your core be tied to us as like with the ACSA, in order to move forward with that. If you do some sort of a certifying partner switch, and still want to utilize the action plan, that's going to be something that we'll have to address on a case-by-case basis, just to make sure that all necessary eligibility requirements are held. And that would be answered during when you talk to the core administration team at that time. Okay. Next question. Does the ACSA, I guess, will face special forms for this? So I guess if, I'm not sure. We do have a special, like we have specific forms when it comes to at least the proposal form that would have to be filled out. And that's really the only form that you need that's an ACSA template. Everything else that would be submitted would be your own documentation, just proving that you're executing that action plan once it's approved by the ACSA. So I hope that answers that question. Can you just remind the group, this was a question, so what are the minimum number of objectives, Austin, for an action plan?
I can go back to that slide too. So it's 3 to 7 is the standard for the objectives.
Okay, so it really depends on their safety management system, possibly their last certification audit results, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's entirely up to the company on how they want to tackle that. And yeah, as long as they're within that guideline, then that's the main thing.
Okay. Okay. Will these slides be available to us after the webinar is finished, as well as the transcript of everything that's being discussed? Yeah, so at the beginning of the presentation, this is being recorded. And so once the presentation is done and the recording is stopped, this will be available to everyone who signed up for it, probably sometime next week, as well as shortly after. It will also be posted on the ACSA YouTube channel for everyone who wishes to see this information. So it will be available. Is there a template provided for the action plan?
Yeah, so that's the same proposal form that we were talking about. So that's as a part of it. And so that's all available on our website in the action plans section of our website, and the downloadable form is on there.
Okay. Okay, can we combine the post-audit action plan, internal 2023 audit, and the core action plan for maintenance year 2024? I've started the post-audit action plan. based on the 2023 audit deficiencies and planning to work on it. But I can include all deficiencies in the core action plan, or I have completed the post-audit action plan first, and then the core action plan focusing on new deficiencies. It's a lot to unpack, Austin. I don't know if you see the question. You may want to read that yourself.
Yeah, so we're talking about like making an action plan as a result of the previous core audit, and wondering if you can. I'm not grasping the question, to be completely honest.
Okay, we'll come back to this question.
Yeah.
Maybe there's someone else. We have another moderator. I'll go through the questions and maybe we can post a comment in that question for some clarity.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. To clarify, do you have to be on your 5th year of the core cycle to be eligible to complete or apply for an action plan?
Yeah, so it's that 5th year is the first year you're eligible, and so yeah, that would be the first time you can apply for that and be able to complete it.
Okay, but their 5th year, basically that's the first opportunity to complete the action plan. So
yeah,
when you go to that can you go to that diagram, Austin?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
So when you look at that diagram, so you have your first certification audit, year 1, you have your 2 maintenance audits, and then you have your recertification audit because your core is expiring at that time. Once you've completed your year 4, now you have the choice to either conduct another maintenance audit or do the core action plan. I hope that clarifies that question. Can we submit early if done?
Yes. We've already had a few submissions for action plans. Currently have been actually working on them today, to be completely honest. So yeah, if you're ready to do your proposal and you want to submit it before the deadline, feel free to do so. And that's totally fine to do that. If you're ready to submit it, feel free to do so.
Okay, this is a question that we talked about this a little bit, but we previously moved our core to the ACSA from another certifying partner. Does that impact our eligibility for the action plan? So I'll answer this one, Austin, if that's okay.
Yep.
Not necessarily. You have to make sure you have all the same eligibility criteria. So when you contact our core admin team, what we may need to ask or possibly reach out to your previous certifying partner is just making sure that you've gone through that full core cycle. So if you meet all that eligibility criteria, then I don't see why that should impact anything there. But we may need to just ask a couple of additional questions just to make sure that all the criteria is met. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. We got a few more questions here. Does this apply if a company uses an external auditor?
There would still, so the training would still have to be done for like the company has to have the training. So yeah, with that, there would still have to be someone that is still certified to be able to maintain. You could do probably, I don't know if you want to chime in, like maybe there could be an additional person added on there as well, but I might have, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add there, Matt.
No, you can have additional people on the action plan, just as long as the training standards are adhered to. There's no issues with that at all, as well as responsibility. So we do run into I think this was mentioned already in Austin's slides. If there's any sort of changes in individuals for like who's responsible to complete what. If there's changes there, get a hold of us right away, so then we can make that change internally. We know things happen throughout the year, even from the proposal to the submission stage, we're talking several months sometimes, right? So as long as we know what's going on, because if you have certain individuals responsible to complete those action items, it would be our expectation that we would see some sort of a record of them completing that action item.
Yeah.
So just something to think about. All right, another good question here. So the question reads, I believe this can be used towards our yearly upkeep on your auditor cert or audit cert. So,
so yeah, there was this slide. Where did I don't even. There was a slide regarding that. So yes, that will maintain your status as an auditor by conducting the action plan.
Okay, we'll give it another few seconds here. I'm not sure if there's not seeing any other questions right now. I'm just doing a refresh here. Okay. If you do have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat. Mine's still refreshing, so Austin, if you see any additional questions, please feel free to answer them. Okay. All right, I'm not. Oh, okay, so we do have a few more here that's, we'll publish those right now. So if you see them, Austin, feel free to answer them. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I'm not seeing them, to be honest.
Okay. Wait, we'll just let those load up here. Okay, now they're coming up.
Okay.
How is the time windows for submitting and completing the action plan?
It when we look at it, I think normally we look at them quite quickly. I'll be completely honest. When a lot of them have come in, we prioritize them. So it really depends on the time of when they've been submitted as well. So what I would say is that when we do ask for any sort of amendments, we give about a week time turnaround for any sort of further information that we need. So yeah, it really kind of depends at the kind of the time of year and when they've all been submitted, but it is usually a really quick turnaround because we do prioritize those once they've all come in.
Okay, and I guess the other thing too, I guess if you're looking at that context for submitting and completing the action plan, that really depends on the company themselves on how quickly they can get them done.
Yeah.
As long as you're maintaining the submission timelines, then that's good. I do recommend though, make sure your proposal is approved by the ACSA before moving forward with those action items. We've ran into cases where individuals have gone forward with it, but they're not meeting the necessary milestones in the criteria, which then can cause some delays as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and we already answered about the turnover time for proposal reviews. Roughly what percentage of companies tend to use the action plan option over completing a maintenance audit? So I can answer that. Okay. So it does vary year over year. We've had as many as over 500 employers. I think this was a few years ago, submit action plans. And then it really varies depending on the cycle and what their circumstances are. I think we had just about 300 of our core members submitting action plans last year, and then about the same the year before. So it does vary, but the ones that have done it, they seem to really enjoy that option because of the flexibility, so they can focus on things that's tailored or that's really relevant to their organization, and that goes beyond just the standard core questions. And then just kind of a side note here, this is also the first year the ACSA is offering action plans for our small employers as well. So a few weeks ago, we had the similar webinar for our COR holders, and we've already had a couple of COR companies submit their action plans as well and taken advantage of this option. How long does the approval process take? Yeah, so we've already answered that. Sometimes it depends on what was submitted and what was proposed, but usually the turnaround times are relatively quick. What if a second person has not got back to their student assignment prior to submitting the date? Can they still take part in the action plan? I think this has to do with students submitting their qualifying audit to be certified.
So they'd have to be a certified auditor to be able to participate in it. So the answer would be no. If
they would have to have a qualifying audit before they start. So if there is, so if there is something that's in the queue, contact us, and we'll discuss that on a case-by-case basis for sure. Will the proposed changes to COR affect this process? So I'll answer that. So no, not in the near future. No, this process will still remain the same as far as the ACSA is aware of. Can you use your internal action plan for 2023? Internal action plan for 2023 for the COR Action Plan 2024?
Well, no, you can't do the same one 2 years in a row, if that's kind of, I'm interpreting that. It would have to be a brand new action plan submission from the previous one. So yeah, you couldn't use the same action plan twice.
Okay. If you have already submitted for a maintenance audit, can you cancel and do the action plan?
You can do that, yeah, if you'd like. It's up to them though, and they'd have to notify us that they intend to do that. And kind of what was mentioned in the slides as well about if you feel that you're unable to do the action plan and notifying us, and then you would have to do that maintenance audit as a replacement. So
okay, depending on the situation, can you ask to extend your due date on the action plan?
Those, I think that would kind of go to you, Matt, regarding that. Those dates are those are kind of hard deadlines, but I think, yeah, if there's a various circumstance, that'd probably be have to have a conversation with Matt regarding that, and seeing if that's acceptable or not.
Yeah, we can address those if there's extenuating circumstances. We would address those on a case-by-case basis, just like any other situation in any other audit. We do have those deadlines for a reason. The biggest thing is especially your final submission. If we really want to, that's a pretty hard deadline for us, and the reason being is because we want to make sure that if there's any sort of potential issues with that action plan, there's still time for the member to conduct a maintenance audit within that year, so you don't lose your certification. So we want to make sure that there's enough runway for all our members to be able to achieve that and ensure success for that current year. Okay. How can you, okay, so the question is, how can you identify an objective from the last core if you cannot use the action plan from the last audit? Have to come up with a new objectives. So when you look at the presentation, if you have, I guess, if you're looking at 2023, we'll clarify this a little bit.
Yeah.
You have your action plan for your core audit for 2023. You have to use one. You can use one of those objectives for your core action plan as a maintenance option. It's the action plan isn't intended to be using a full action plan for all questions within the audit. This is an option for you to think outside the box and utilize items that are beyond the standard core questions to improve your health and safety management system. Okay. Just waiting here for a couple of questions. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions right now, so alrighty. Okay. I think that's it. Austin, is there any final thoughts that you wanted to talk about?
No, it was thanks for the opportunity to present on action plans, and hope you all gained some insight on what is entailed as a part of the process. And thank you for taking time out of your day to join this webinar.
And again, if you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to anybody on the core team. Thank you, Austin, for taking the time. I know you've done this a couple of times now. You actually presented this at our conference as well. So I really appreciate that. One of the things that we just want to make sure that we do here is that we have options and provide a path to success for our members when it comes to maintaining their core. So thank you very much, everybody. As I said, we'll have the recording posted over the next several days for anybody who participated here today, as well as our YouTube channel. So then if anyone wants to take this away and consider this as an option moving forward. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.